Hey folks, how's it going? Today, we're talking about the worst dads in animation, because there's quite a few of them. Omni-Man, Randy Marsh, Buck Cluck. I will never forget when Disney made this tweet. Someone did not watch the movie.
You have hate mail.
I'm truly sorry, that wasn't very funny.
You have more hate mail.
Now, I got the idea for this video after working on another video where I rank every episode of King of the Hill, which is just stuck in copyright hell. 187 claims, I'll tell you what. But we're gonna fight YouTube on this one, and hopefully get the video out by next week. It's shaping up to be the most ambitious project we've ever done, and I promise it'll be worth the wait. It's like over 6 hours long at this point. By the way, a big shout out to our patrons and channel members for helping us to keep the lights on over here. Thank you so very much for the support. But after watching King of the Hill over 15 times, I started to wonder, is there a cartoon dad who is worse than Cotton Hill? I mean, the guy is the living definition of cruelty and mocks Hank at every turn. He even called his new son Good Hank, just to spite the original Hank. Well, believe it or not, there are worse dads. Far worse. Dads who are the total opposite of Bandit Healer. But who should be considered the worst of the worst? And what makes a terrible father into a memorable character? Well, let's find out.
Just thought the boy had to fire a gun. Look at him. He loves to shoot.
This video is brought to you by Raycon. Folks, let me tell you, I've been more active now than I ever have been in years. Hitting your 30s can certainly make you more self-aware about how much you're moving throughout the day. Or how little, right? So why not let Raycon accompany you on your adventures? Out now is their latest and greatest addition to their lineup, the Raycon Essential Open Earbuds. Unlike traditional earbuds, these sport a design that is meant to sit outside of your ears and transmit audio. The future is now. When I first tried them, there were times where I would forget I was even wearing them. You could wear them for hours. They are that comfortable. Personally, it makes it easier for me to carry out my daily routine without totally blocking out the chatter of my fiance and my dogs. They also have built-in DSP that helps to enhance your speech and calls, which is pretty nifty, especially if you live in a busy city. With IXP5 waterproof technology, these earbuds will kick the sweat to the curb, allowing you to listen to your world and the world around you in comfort. These earbuds also include up to 36 hours of battery life and 8 hours of continuous playtime, and they can charge wirelessly. So when you're ready to give these earbuds a shot, head on over to buyraycon.com/SaberSparkOpen to get 20% off your Raycon's Essential Open Earbuds. Or hit up my QR code on the screen. Thank you again to Raycon for sponsoring this video, and now back to the video.
Please.
Starting things off, we've got Buck Cluck, the dad from Chicken Little. And oh my God, is this guy a real piece of work. Buck is a single dad taking care of his son, Chicken Little, after the passing of his wife, Chloe. But Buck is far from the nurturing parent figure his son actually needs or deserves. His love is conditional in the worst kind of way. Either make me look good or stay out of sight. Buck is the first one to throw Chicken Little under the bus during a mishap in town where he believes the sky is falling, rather than trying to hear him out or defend his son. Buck tries to smooth things over with the public to save his own skin while casually calling his son crazy. He cares way too much about what other people think and of how things look in public over having a caring relationship with his son.
It's okay, everyone.
Dad, no.
There's been like a little mistake.
No.
It was just an acorn that hit my son. A little acorn.
Dad, no.
Quiet, son. This is embarrassing enough already.
Everything about this dude reeks of, I peaked in high school. Buck used to be a champion baseball player as a teenager, and he discourages Chicken Little from joining the team because he's worried his son sucks at the game and will publicly embarrass him. To Buck, appearances are everything, and he's only supportive of Chicken Little when he achieves something that also makes him look good. By the climax of the movie, Chicken Little does eventually call his father out on being a superficial jerk, but their resolution is just as empty and meaningless as this entire movie. Again, never forget the tweets. I bet this intern got fired out of a cannon for that one. Now, that all being said, Buck may not be the worst dad on this list, but he's pretty damn awful by Disney standards.
You gotta be ready to listen to your children, even if they have nothing to say.
Next, we got Randy Marsh. Now, he may have started off as a goofy but lovable geologist, but as the years have gone on, he's become a menace and an agent of chaos. Randy has basically no impulse control and drags his family into a variety of new business ventures, no matter how dumb or poorly thought out they are. Despite being the primary breadwinner of the family, Randy has quit his job as a geologist more than a handful of times and is constantly looking for the next big thing to make himself happy. He tried working at Walmart, becoming a Food Network chef, owning a rundown Blockbuster video during the streaming age, and of course, becoming a mall security guard during Christmas to snag the best deals for himself. But the worst case of this has to be Tegrity Farms, when Randy moves his family out to the Colorado countryside to become a weed farmer. But Randy can't stop smoking his own supply and goes to some far-reaching dirty tactics to succeed. He even murdered Winnie the Pooh in order to be able to sell weed to the Chinese market. God. Randy can be pretty tone deaf too, even when he's succeeding. He openly gloats about having the only thriving business in South Park during the pandemic, but he's also directly responsible for spreading the virus after drunkenly having sex with the pangolin in China. And throughout all of this, his family suffers for it by either working with him or being held back by his decisions. Sharon is routinely ignored and taken for granted by Randy, as he expects her to clean up after his messes. This lack of consideration briefly led to him and Sharon reaching their breaking point and doing a trial separation in You're Getting Old. And by the way, that episode, holy shit, does it hit hard, especially when you're older. Like me, Stan hates Randy for forcing him to move out to the country and leaving his friends behind. And his daughter Shelley resents him for choosing his business over the happiness of his family.
We need to talk about your marijuana problems.
Everyone in this country is getting dumber, and I wish marijuana was illegal again!
Shelly!
But the family can mostly function well enough without him, as they all know how dumb he is, and can still live their lives independently without him. But Randy's biggest issue is how selfish and oblivious he is, as he frequently makes life-altering decisions that affects the rest of his family without him really caring about the consequences. Overall, Randy may have committed a number of egregious crimes and made some incredibly dumb decisions, but mostly he's just a very incompetent dad. Just make sure you hide his car keys if he breaks out the beer or red wine again. This guy cannot be trusted. Next, we got Big Bob Pataki. Yes, the Beeper King. Now, Hey Arnold as a show has aged like a fine wine since its heyday in the 1990s. God, I'm old. But Helga's father, Big Bob Pataki, has aged like an expired protein shake left out in the sun. Bob is the face and owner of a successful digital paper company called Big Bob's Beepers. But at home, Bob is loud, aggressive, demanding, and constantly forgets Helga even exists, not to mention forgetting her name.
Hey, who's taking me to preschool?
Yeah, in a minute, Olga.
No, I'm Helga, Dad. Helga.
Whatever. Go play outside, would you?
He's your classic narcissistic father. Everything is always about him and what he wants. All Bob cares about is winning, no matter what, and he lives through his children to uphold those values above everything else. He's too insensitive to see how much his selfish behavior negatively affects everyone else in his entire family. His wife, Miriam, is a depressed, codependent alcoholic who can barely take care of herself or her kids, and she is constantly held back from her own success due to Bob's overbearing nature. Their oldest daughter, Olga, is the perfect, overachieving golden child who can do no wrong in her parents' eyes, and she secretly resents being treated more like a trophy than their daughter.
You must think I'm lucky. All the attention I get from them. I have to perform all the time like some kind of wind-up doll. I get really sick of it. You're lucky they don't even notice you.
Really?
Really.
And Helga is the black sheep of the family, mostly because, well, she's not Olga. And everything she does will always be compared to her instead of being her own person. But the reason I rank Bob here is that luckily, Helga is smart enough to see right through him and knows that he's completely full of crap. One of the most touching episodes in the entire series is Helga on the Couch, wherein Helga talks to a child psychologist to find the root cause of why she bullies other students. And shocking no one, it's mostly due to Bob being an awful person and a worse father who drags everyone down around him. Helga is absolutely the product of severe emotional abuse and neglect by her family ever since she was in preschool. But Bob threatens her, demanding she doesn't talk to the psychologist because he claims it'll tear their family apart.
We didn't have therapy when I was a kid.
That's obvious, Bob.
I don't want you blabbing to some school shrink. We Patakis don't talk about things. We sweep them under the rug.
Some things are best swept under the rug, Helga.
Seriously, the dude is telling on himself so hard in this episode. But Helga has enough self-awareness and empathy to understand how to not be like him as an adult. That doesn't excuse her bullying, obviously, but as long as she can get away from him, I think she's going to be okay as an adult. I also recall hearing about an unproduced spin-off of Hey Arnold called The Patakis that would go further into Helga's family dynamic. In it, Bob is still terrible, only this time he has a Tony Soprano vibe, wears a tracksuit, and expanded his beeper empire into a full-blown electronics store. But regardless of that show not being made, Bob will always be remembered as one of Nickelodeon's worst dads, and somebody who became a parent for all the wrong reasons. Next, we have Cotton Hill, Hank's father from King of the Hill. Despite being a World War II veteran, there is nothing honorable about Cotton as a person. Like, thank you for your service, but that's about it. And if withholding affection from his son was a competitive sport, Cotton would win the gold every single year.
You're never gonna be a war hero like me if you shoot like that. No wonder that kid from the playground stole your pail. He knows you can't shoot.
He's been a hateful and mean-spirited asshat to Hank ever since he was a child. But that has not stopped Hank from wanting to get his approval ever since. That was an impossible task, as nothing Hank did was ever good enough for him. Cotton would constantly move the goalpost to withhold any actual love and admiration from Hank. So much that once more, he named his second child GH, or Good Hank, as a reminder that his firstborn son would never be good enough for him and Cotton's beady little eyes. Now, is there anything decent about him as a person? Not much. Cotton's only real redeeming quality is his clear affection for his grandson, Bobby. But he's not a good influence. He's racist, he's sexist, and actively insults anyone who has ever tried to care about him. Except for, Bobby. Again, that's the one exception. Luckily, Bobby is too smart to really take anything Cotton says to heart. The only genuine compliment Cotton ever gives to Hank is for his parenting. Of course, Cotton still has to get an insult in there, obviously. But hey, it's something.
Hell, if it's a contest on who's the better daddy, you win. I mean, you made Bobby. All I made was you.
But his ultimate adversary is Peggy. Someone who is just as stubborn and opinionated as he is. He refuses to call her by her name, only referring to her as Hank's wife, and relishes getting under her skin. Their final face-off is literally on Cotton's deathbed. Peggy really lays into him, and Cotton dies out of spite. He's like, Hank's wife, you want me to live forever? Cotton Hill spent his entire life trying to make everyone else as miserable as he is. But thankfully, Hank is 100 times the father that Cotton was. And he's still providing the same positive influence and guidance to both Bobby and GH in season 14. Next, we have Butterscotch Horseman from BoJack Horseman. Now don't let his sweet-sounding name fool you. Butterscotch is the bitter father of BoJack, with a sour attitude and a miserable outlook on life. He's a failed writer that accidentally knocked up Beatrice Sugarman at her debutante party. But while they may have tried to give their marriage a rocky but idealistic shot, that relationship quickly turned toxic once they actually got to know each other. Butterscotch and Beatrice were a bad pairing from the start. As the heiress to a sugar cube fortune, Beatrice represented everything he hated from his working-class background. Most of their relationship was based on obligations they weren't prepared for that gradually warped into long-term resentments. And after BoJack was born, they unsurprisingly dumped all of their baggage onto him. BoJack never really had a chance after being born into such an abusive household. His parents would constantly have shouting matches in front of him that usually turned violent. And for most of his adult life, Butterscotch was an absentee parent that had no real interest in being a good father to his son. He was more preoccupied with drinking alcohol, avoiding his family, and regularly cheating on his wife. But that did not stop Butterscotch from rationalizing his neglect and abuse as lessons for BoJack to learn. You know, classic lessons like guilt-tripping BoJack into not mentioning his father having a workplace affair after getting him drunk, or how much he hates BoJack for being born.
The whole day's shot, all because of you and that brittle wisp of a woman you made the mistake of making your mother.
Butterscotch likes to think of himself as the next great American novelist, but he wasted his entire life by not writing anything of value. He eventually did finish his novel titled The Horse That Couldn't Be Broken, but nobody bought it, with one bad review leading him into a downward spiral. So that title is definitely not for an autobiography. Butterscotch has incredibly thin skin and can't handle any criticism at all. He delusionally believed that his work was too sophisticated for the critic, and he challenged him to a duel, but tripped and died instantly after hitting his head on a rock. Butterscotch demanded respect as a father and a husband, but did nothing to earn it, dying just as pathetically as he lived. Making it at number 6, we've got Clay Puppington from Moral Oral. Far from being an ideal dad, Clay is what happens when a stereotypical 1950s father misinterprets the Bible as a shield to justify abusing his children. Clay is a bad father and a poor husband because of his refusal to admit when he's wrong or explain his broken logic. Clay rules the house with an iron fist, and it's either his way or the highway, or get shot. He frequently disciplines Oral by beating him with a belt in his study, but always gives him bad advice and the wrong moral of the story. Clay came from a very uneven parenting background. His mother spoiled the hell out of him, but his closed-off father blamed Clay for his mother's abrupt death when he accidentally scared her to death. These experiences growing up turned Clay into a very hands-off father who lacks the emotional maturity or interest in getting to know his sons in an authentic way. Especially Shapey, Clay seems to forget he exists half the time. He constantly complains about his lousy, stinking, dead-end job. But once it's revealed that he's the mayor of Morrilton, it makes sense why the town is just as judgmental and hateful as he is. Clay also leverages this hatred against his wife, Blaberta. Any love they used to have for each other is gone, with them sleeping in separate beds with a wall dividing them right down the middle. They're both trapped in a failed, hateful marriage, with Clay acting out his repressed homosexuality with the gym teacher, Danielle Stopframe. But the worst example of Clay's parenting has to be when he takes Oral on a father-son hunting trip to the woods. Clay is a raging alcoholic and spends the entire trip downing scotch and feeling sorry for himself while ignoring his son. he gets so drunk that he bullies Oral into shooting someone's hunting dog and roasting it over a fire for dinner. Clay has no real concern for his son and drunkenly shoots him after a frightening tirade against women, parenting, and his own self-hatred. The next morning, Clay has no memory of it happening and completely denies being responsible for the mishap.
I want to go home, Dad.
What? Why? What happened?
You shot me in the leg.
No, I didn't.
Look.
Oh, I don't remember that. So that means it's not my fault.
This is the moment Oral loses any sense of respect for his father and finally starts to think for himself. It's a loss of innocence in a way, but it's also the wake-up call he needed to distance himself from his father's warped perspective on life. Clay is a deeply sad and cruel father, but the one positive thing he's done is show his son who he truly is and how to avoid becoming his father as an adult. I'm so glad that Oral escaped that miserable family. Next, we have the infamous legend himself. Peter Griffin. I can do a good Peter Griffin impersonation. Did you hear that? No one else can do that, only me. Out of all of the dads on this list, I think Peter is the most likely to end up in prison. At the very least, he really should. This father of 3 from Quahog, Rhode Island has a whole rap sheet of illegal behavior. So much so that it's a wonder he's able to hold a job at all. Peter is a terrible father, and he routinely neglects and abuses his children. He's threatened by his son Chris being more well-endowed than he is, and even proposes marriage to him once Carter cuts the rest of the family off of his inheritance, leaving all of it to Chris. Stewie is mostly ignored by Peter, but Meg, by far, gets it the worst, as Peter constantly hits her, bullies her, and otherwise treats her like total crap.
Dad! What is it? What's going on? I heard a noise. Is somebody downstairs?
Oh, God, Meg, you startled me. I'm sorry.
What the heck?
Is there a real reason to explain why Peter is such an awful dad? Well, kind of. This is a real mix of nature versus nurture here. Peter was raised by his stepfather, Francis, who was a horrifically abusive man that hid behind his religion to excuse being a violent and cruel person. But his birth father was Mickey McFinnigan, the local drunk of a small Irish town who beat Peter in a drinking contest to prove he was his real father. Right there, you see that? We have 2 of Peter's worst problems explained. But as for nature, Peter is technically on the lower end of the intelligence spectrum. Yes, it's that kind of analysis video. Let's go. So Peter is essentially a giant man-child who is incapable of understanding the consequences of what he does. It definitely doesn't excuse his laundry list of bad behavior, though. None of those factors have stopped Peter from drunk driving or committing acts of terrorism, murder, assault, infidelity, or drug abuse. This dude is a walking, talking CPS violation. Now, Peter seems to be able to turn off questioning the morality of his behavior if it gets him the attention he craves. But sometimes it's cathartic to see him get beaten up for being a clueless dummy. It doesn't happen much, but when it does, chef's kiss. It is very satisfying.
No! I'm so sick of your crap! Why do you always do these stupid things? And why do you always announce them to me before you do them? Are you trying to get a rise out of me?
You used to be cool, Peter. I used to watch you when I was in high school, during Family Guy seasons 1 to 3. What happened to you? Shame on you, Peter. Be better. Next, we have Omni-Man, and listen, okay? Listen, I'm basing it off the current seasons of Invincible. Now, at the moment, I'm reading the comic, and I'm currently on book 2, and I'm getting a hunch that some sort of redemption is possible for the guy. But regardless, he did beat Mark within an inch of his life.
Fine! What's 17 more years? I can always start again. Make another kid.
Nolan is racist. He sees humanity as a piece on a chessboard for the Viltrumite Empire. That his own wife was more of a pet than a partner. He is a cold-blooded murderer. Like Omni-Man has killed tens of thousands of people, quite possibly millions. But when it comes to Mark, his son, he at least originally saw him as a new entry into the Viltrumite Empire. someone who could be molded into a conqueror of planets. Fortunately for humanity, Mark was a bit too human, a little too woke, am I right? And actually had empathy. But unfortunately for Mark, this led to his father beating him to the brink of death, a legendary mauling that almost killed him. Mark wanted to make his father proud as a hero. But Nolan rejected it. Mark wanted to protect humanity, while Nolan saw it as a stepping stone for his empire's crusade. Mark only ever wanted to be close to his father, but sadly learned the truth that his dad never cared about his mother or the planet Earth. That being a hero was only a way to bide his time until Mark had come of age with his powers, and that led to a disastrous confrontation. Can Omni-Man redeem himself? Well, maybe, but he will never be able to truly atone for his crimes. There's just way too much blood on his hands. And what he did to Mark and his mother is unspeakably evil. Thank God humanity was able to leave its mark on Nolan, or Omni-Man could have been the bottom of this list. Hopefully, he'll be able to at least make some things right at the end of Invincible. Again, I'm halfway through book 2 at the moment, so I imagine I will know soon enough. Maybe some more bug girls to bang, Oh, that's right, Nolan, you dog, you have another son. You got busy with the bug girl and had Mark 2.0. You had a GH, didn't you? Wait till I tell Bobby, who's also in Invincible, and also Bobby is reading Invincible and King of the Hill. How about that? Small world. Next, we have Fire Lord Ozai. Hey, at least Omni-Man realized that mauling Mark was wrong. Ozai was straight up about to kill his own son with a lightning bolt. Like, no hesitation, you are about to die. Let's toss some more sins onto the pile. He pitted his children against one another. He psychologically and emotionally warped them. He dueled his own son in combat and scarred him for life. He banished his son. He told his son that the only way he would ever care about him is if he captured the Avatar. And the icing on the cake, he's waging a genocidal war. Just dad things, am I right? Ozai is evil. Just pure evil. He only cared about status, conquest, and power, and used his family as a means to an end. It's honestly as simple as that. He completely lacks any paternal instinct and is extremely toxic across the board, like a true psychopath. I mean, who could be worse than that? This guy would literally have to be a person who isn't just a genocidal freak, who psychologically gaslights his kid, but hey, maybe a baby killer too. And I don't think that character exists. Well, if you really want to talk about the worst father in animation history, it's gonna be hard to beat Judge Claude Frollo, the adoptive, father of Quasimodo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Now, Frollo may pretend to be a man of God, but in reality, he is a cruel and cold-hearted sadist who abuses his position of power to commit a mass genocide against the Romani people of Paris. And he's been at it for over 20 years at the start of the movie, a long-term goal, a stretch goal even. Frollo is deeply racist and hates Romani people with a passion. His hatred goes so far that he willingly kills a woman in the streets by kicking her into the stairs and stealing her baby in the process. Initially, Frollo wants to drown the baby by throwing it into a well, but has the fear of God put onto him by the Archdeacon of Notre Dame. And yeah, if trying to drown a baby doesn't get you at the top of this list, then I don't know what does. Sure, Ozai, you're crazy. Omni-Man, you're nuts. Peter, not good. But Frollo? Oh, no. Frollo is deeply, deeply evil. The worst papa dog of all time. Frollo later becomes a reluctant surrogate father to Quasimodo. He's a quiet and artistic dude who rings the bells and is kept isolated from the rest of the town due to his appearance. But Frollo preys on Quasi's kindness and fear to keep him under control by convincing him that the people of Paris will only see him as a monster. However, as we all know, Frollo is the real monster in this scenario. The song even says so. And his impact on Quasi is threatened when a beautiful woman named Esmeralda befriends him at the Festival of Fools. Frollo passively allows Quasi to be publicly humiliated after the crowd turns ugly, just to be a dick about it. But once Esmeralda helps Quasi and humiliates Frollo by destroying his tent, well, then suddenly the gloves are off and he wants her arrested immediately. And to do other stuff too. Again, he's pretty evil. Frollo is a highly corrupt, vindictive, and manipulative presence in the film, as he sees the Romani people as pests that he has to exterminate. But he's also a huge hypocrite and is secretly lusting after Esmeralda behind closed doors. In a church, in front of God, in a scene that's so creepy, it is hard to believe that the animators were actually allowed to do this.
What are you doing?
I was just imagining a rope around that beautiful neck.
I know what you're imagining.
Instead of questioning his own twisted logic, Frollo becomes completely obsessed with her, resolving to burn down Paris and imprisoning countless others if she refuses his advances. Frollo's Hellfire sequence to this day is still one of the coolest things Disney has ever animated. And if you have not seen this film before, you are seriously missing out. Frollo's horrific treatment of Quasimodo runs the full gamut too. Mental abuse, emotional abuse, manipulative threats, and eventually he becomes physically violent with him, trying to stab his own adoptive son in the back. Also, he tried to kill him as a baby, but Frollo's hubris and hatred gets the better of him as he plunges to his death during the climactic battle on the Notre Dame Cathedral. So yeah, Frollo tops this list due to his history of genocide, long-term child abuse, murder, arson, and basically just being the absolute worst. I think we all can use our imaginations and guess what he would have done to Esmeralda if he could have gotten his way. Again, this isn't a Disney film. Insane. Honestly, I think hell is too nice of a place for him. Shoot this guy directly into the sun instead. Give him the Doom guy. That's a fitting punishment. But hey folks, that's just my own personal list of evil fathers. But what do you all think? I'm sure that I missed one or two options. If so, tell me down below in the comments, and I'll see you guys next time.